Come closer, my child. Not with your feet, but with your breath. Let the noise loosen its grip on you for a moment. I know how long you have been standing here, checking the horizon, watching the same sky return the same color day after day. You keep wondering if you missed something, if you misunderstood me, if perhaps the promise slipped away while you were trying to be patient. Hear me clearly now. I have not been silent. I have been speaking in the stillness. Nothing has changed yet, and that is not a failure. It is a shelter. I know the waiting has begun to feel heavier than the pain that first sent you praying. At least pain as a ship. Waiting feels like emptiness, like being forgotten. But I am nearer to you now than you realize. I am closer in this pause than I was in the moment you first cried out to me. The quiet is not abandonment. It is alignment. You have been measuring time by visible movement, by proof you can touch, by messages that arrive or do not arrive. But I do not move the way you expect me to. I shift foundations before I change scenery. I work in roots before I allow fruit. If I rush what you are asking for, it would collapse under its own weight. So I am holding it steady, even while your heart trembles. I see how you replay conversations in your mind, how you wonder if one small decision altered everything. I see the questions you never speak out loud because you are afraid of the answers. You ask yourself if you waited too long, trusted too deeply, hoped too much. My child, hope is not your weakness. It is the evidence that I am still at work in you. There is a reason nothing looks different yet. There are movements happening beyond your sight, negotiations you are not meant to manage, truths being restrained until the right moment. If you could see the full picture now, it would overwhelm you. So I cover parts of it with mercy. I let you rest in uncertainty while I handle what would exhaust you. This waiting is not wasted. It is training your spirit to stay soft without becoming fragile. You are learning how to trust me without leaning on outcomes. You are learning how to breathe without control. That is not small work. That is sacred work. I know the temptation to interpret stillness as rejection. I know how quickly your mind turns quiet into a verdict against yourself. But listen to me. I have not changed my mind. I have not lowered my standards for you. I have not forgotten the prayers you whispered when you thought no one else could hear. I collected every one of them. They are not lost. They are queued. There is someone connected to your destiny who is not ready yet, though you are. That delay has nothing to do with your worth. It has everything to do with timing, protection, and preparation. If paths crossed too soon, damage would be done that love alone could not repair. So I hold the door closed, even when you press your hand against it, even when you wonder why it will not open. I am asking you not to run from this season. Sit with me here. Let me show you who you are without the answer. Let me remind you that your life is not on pause just because one desire has not unfolded. There are parts of you growing stronger right now precisely because nothing has changed. If this moment is speaking to your spirit, I invite you to gently affirm it. You may like and share this message so it reaches another heart that is waiting quietly, and you may subscribe if you wish to remain close to these words. And if you feel led, write in the comments, I am still trusting, not for me, but for your own soul to hear itself say it. Do not mistake delay for denial. Do not confuse silence with absence. I am here, closer than the thought that tells you otherwise. I am steady where you feel unsteady. I am working where you feel nothing. Nothing has changed yet, and that is okay. This is not the end of the story. This is the inhale before the movement. Stay with me. Stay soft. Stay listening. When it is time, Change will not need to announce itself. You will feel it shift the moment it arrives. And until then, you are held. I know the silence has started to feel personal, my child. It presses against your chest in the quiet hours, especially when the world slows down and there is nothing left to distract you. You replay the timeline again, tracing the days, the prayers, the moments you thought surely something would shift. And when nothing does, a quiet fear creeps in and whispers that perhaps you were left behind. But I am here now to tell you the truth the silence has been hiding. This quiet is not abandonment. It is not proof that you were ignored or overlooked. It is not evidence that you misunderstood me. Silence is often where I do my most deliberate work. When everything is loud, hearts resist. When everything is moving, souls do not listen. So I allow the stillness not to punish you, but to protect what is forming beneath the surface. I see how the silence makes you question your value. You wonder why others seem to move forward while you remain suspended in the same unanswered place. You ask why doors open easily for them while yours remain shut no matter how gently you knock. My child, comparison is a cruel interpreter. It cannot read destiny. It only reads distance. And distance is not the same as delay. There are things unfolding that require quiet. There are truths being confronted in places you cannot reach. The silence you feel is not empty. It is filled with tension, with conviction, with awakening that has not yet found its voice. You are not being forgotten. You are being shielded from noise that would distort what is coming. I know how heavy it feels to pray and hear nothing back. You wonder if your words dissolve into the air, if your faith has grown thin, if perhaps you ask too much. But hear me now. I do not measure your prayers by volume or frequency. I respond to sincerity, and yours has never faded. Even when your words became fewer, your heart kept speaking. There is someone tied to your future who is currently learning through discomfort. Their world has grown quiet too, though they do not understand why. The silence is confronting them, exposing what they have avoided, stripping away distractions they once used to drown out conviction. You are not absent from their thoughts the way you fear. You are present in the quiet they cannot escape. I know the silence tempts you to reach out, to force clarity, to create movement just so you can feel alive again. But restraint here is wisdom. If you speak too soon, you interrupt what I am unraveling. If you act out of fear, you step into a role I never asked you to carry. Let me do what only I can do. This season is teaching you how to exist without reassurance. That may sound cruel, but it is strengthening your discernment. You are learning to recognize my presence without signs. You are learning to trust my character rather than my timing. That kind of faith does not shake easily. That kind of faith survives storms you have not yet seen. I know nights are the hardest. The silence grows louder when the lights go out. Questions echo, memories surface, doubts feel heavier in the dark. I am with you there too. When you sigh without words, when you stare at the ceiling and wonder how long this will last, I'm closer than your breath. I do not sleep. I do not drift. I stay. Do not interpret the quiet as rejection. Rejection pushes away. Silence holds space. I am holding space for something sacred, something fragile, something that would be harm if rushed into the open. You are not being denied. You are being preserved. There will come a moment when the silence breaks, not with chaos, but with clarity. When it does, you will understand why it had to be this way. You will see how the waiting refined you, how the quiet strengthened you, how the stillness taught you to stand without leaning on outcomes. You will not regret this season, even though it aches now. Until then, let the silence rest where it is. Do not wrestle it. Do not label it. Sit with me inside it. I am not distant. I am deliberate. I am not gone. I am guiding. Nothing has changed yet, and that still did not mean nothing is happening. Stay here with me. The silence is listening to. My child, there is more happening than you have been allowed to see, and much of it surrounds the one you feel connected to, even when distance tries to convince you otherwise. While you have been standing still on the outside, their inner world has been anything but calm. What looks like delay to you has felt like pressure to them. What feels like emptiness to you has felt like exposure to them. I have been drawing back layers they kept hidden, not to shame them, but to save them from carrying what would eventually destroy what you are meant to build together. There is a storm around their heart that you did not cause and could not fix. They have been wrestling with fear they never admitted, doubts they buried under confidence, patterns they told themselves were harmless. You wondered why they pulled away, why their energy shifted, why connection became inconsistent. It was not because the bond weakened. It was because it frightened them how real it was. Some souls panic when love stops being abstract and starts asking for change. They are surrounded by noise right now, voices that do not want them to grow, influences that benefit from keeping them uncertain. There is jealousy near them, subtle but persistent, someone who speaks casually but seeds doubt intentionally. That presence smiles while undermining, encourages while misdirecting. You sensed this before you had words for it. That was not imagination. That was discernment. I have allowed this storm because exposure cannot happen in comfort. They needed to see what surrounds them when clarity arrives. They needed to feel the weight of their own avoidance. You could not walk them through this without being wounded in the process, so I stepped between you and the chaos. What felt like separation was protection. What felt like distance was intervention. There are nights when they think of you and feel an ache they cannot explain. They replay moments, words, silences, wondering why peace left when you stepped back. They tell themselves they are fine, that they are in control, but their spirit knows otherwise. The storm is not just external, it is internal, and it is confronting them with truth they delayed too long. You must understand this, my child. If I had allowed you to remain close during this unraveling, you would have been pulled into confusion that was never meant to be yours. You would have tried to rescue instead of witnessing transformation. Love that rushes in too early becomes exhausted before it has a chance to grow strong. I am not punishing them. I am refining them. And I am not neglecting you. I am preserving you. Both of you are being worked on, but in different ways, on different terrain. What feels unfair now will later feel precise. The storm will not last forever. It is already losing strength. Truth has a way of calming what lies can no longer sustain. But until it passes, you must stay anchored where you are. Do not interpret their struggle as rejection. Do not interpret their confusion as lack of care. Something in them is breaking open, and it must happen without interference. Stay steady. Stay listening. What you do not see is not absence. It is preparation moving through turbulence. And I am watching over both of you, closer than either of you realize. My child, behind the doors they keep closed, the strength they show the world has been dissolving. What you do not witness is their quiet unraveling, the moments when composure slips and the weight they have carried finally presses down. They do not speak of it because they were taught that vulnerability is dangerous, that admitting confusion means losing control. But control has already been slipping through their fingers, and the silence has grown heavier because of it. There are moments when they sit alone, staring at nothing, feeling the ache rise without warning. They thought distance would bring relief, that stepping back would quiet the pull they felt toward you. Instead, it amplified everything. Without distraction, without performance, without you near to steady what stirred inside them, their emotions began to surface unfiltered. Guilt crept in, not because they did something dramatic, but because they know they hesitated when they should have been honest. They replay the moments they went quiet, the messages they delayed, the truths they softened or avoided. At first, they justified it. They told themselves they needed space, that timing was wrong, that life was complicated. But justification fades when the heart refuses to cooperate. Now, in the stillness, those excuses sound hollow. They feel the cost of their avoidance, and it frightens them how much it matters. There are nights when emotion overtakes them unexpectedly. A memory, a song, a familiar place opens a door they tried to seal. Their chest tightens, breath shortens, and for a moment they consider reaching out. But fear intercepts the impulse. Fear of being seen. Fear of admitting they were unsure. Fear that they waited too long. So they sit with the ache instead, letting it wash over them in silence. They are not breaking down because they are weak. They are breaking down because they can no longer hold together an identity that no longer fits. Something inside them knows they have outgrown the version of themselves that avoided depth. And growth is uncomfortable when it demands accountability. They feel exposed to themselves in ways they never anticipated. You must understand, my child, that this collapse is necessary. What is falling apart cannot come with them into what I am preparing. If they were to step forward without this reckoning, they would repeat patterns that would wound both of you. So I allow the breakdown, not to humiliate them, but to humble them. Humility creates space for truth to settle. They have asked themselves questions they avoided for years. Why commitment feels threatening. Why love feels like risk instead of refuge. Why they run when something matters. These questions do not come gently. They arrive with discomfort, with self-awareness that stings. But each question loosens the grip of old defenses. You might feel tempted to blame yourself for their withdrawal, to wonder if you asked too much or expected too soon. Release that thought. Their struggle began long before you entered the picture. Your presence did not cause the fracture. It illuminated it. Light does that. It reveals what was already unstable. I have kept you from witnessing this breakdown because love tries to intervene before lessons settle. You would have offered reassurance when conviction was needed. You would have softened what needed to be faced. So I asked you to wait, even though waiting hurts, even though not knowing feels cruel. I am protecting both of you from roles that would distort the future. The season is teaching them what absence feels like when it is earned, not imposed. It is teaching them that connection cannot be taken for granted. It is teaching them that silence has consequences. These realizations are reshaping them slowly, deeply, from the inside out. Do not mistake their quiet collapse as indifference. Indifference is numb. This is not numbness. This is confrontation. This is awakening in its earliest, most uncomfortable stage. And awakening often begins with grief for the self one thought they were. You are not meant to fix this. You are meant to stay rooted. Your steadiness, even from a distance, is part of what holds the possibility of reconciliation intact. When the storm inside them settles, they will remember where peace once lived. They will remember who reflected truth without force. For now, let me handle what is breaking. Let me rebuild what has cracked. You stay where you are held, seen, and protected. This breakdown is not the end. It is the doorway they must walk through before they can meet you without fear. My child, there are truths about this delay that were never meant to reach you until now. Not because you could not handle them, but because knowing them too early would have tempted you to interfere. There are layers beneath what you assumed was hesitation, reasons buried under politeness, fear disguised as logic. What you thought was confusion was actually resistance to transformation. And transformation does not negotiate with comfort. They were given opportunities before you ever noticed the silence. Quiet invitations to choose growth, subtle moments where honesty would have changed the course sooner. Each time, fear answered before courage could. Not fear of you, but fear of becoming someone new. Fear of shedding identities that once kept them safe. Fear of accountability that love demands. That fear delayed what could not be forced. You were never told how much pressure surrounded them. Expectations from others, unspoken obligations, emotional debts they never resolve. There are people in their life who benefit from their stagnation, who feel threatened by the version of them that would rise if they stepped fully into this connection. Those people never confronted you directly, but they influenced the atmosphere. They questioned timing, highlighted risk, minimized depth. Their words sounded reasonable, but their intent was preservation of control. The delay exists because alignment cannot happen while divided loyalties remain hidden. I will not build something sacred on an unstable foundation. What you desire requires clarity, not confusion. Commitment, not convenience. Presence, not potential. So I slowed everything down until truth could no longer be ignored. Until pretending became more painful than changing. There were moments you wondered if obedience cost you too much. If waiting meant losing momentum, losing ground, losing them altogether. But obedience has a long memory. It always pays back in protection, even when it feels expensive in the moment. You were spared from conversations that would have wounded you. You were spared from half-promises that would have drained you. You were spared from carrying responsibility that was never yours. What you were never told is how close this came to breaking permanently. Not because love failed, but because avoidance almost hardened into habit. I intervened before that could happen. I allowed discomfort to grow louder than denial. I removed distractions one by one. I placed them in a season where excuses no longer worked, where silence echoed too sharply to ignore. The delay also protected you from shrinking yourself. Had this moved forward prematurely, you would have compromised needs to keep peace. You would have softened boundaries to maintain connection. You would have accepted uncertainty as normal. That is not the future I am giving you. I am not leading you into something that requires you to disappear in order to be chosen. You see waiting as stillness. I see it as separation from what would have harmed you later. I see it as refinement of desire, purification of motive, strengthening of self-respect. You are not the same person you were when this began. You now recognize what consistency feels like, what honesty sounds like, what peace demands. That awareness is part of the preparation. There are details you still do not know, conversations you will never need to hear, moments I absorbed so you would not carry their weight. I do not reveal everything because not everything is meant to live in your memory. Some truths are handled by me alone so your heart can remain soft. This delay was not random. It was intentional, precise, protective. It removed what could not come forward. It confronted what could no longer hide. And it preserved what is meant to last. When movement begins again, it will not be fragile. It will not be confusing. It will not require you to guess where you stand. For now, trust that what was withheld was mercy. What was postponed with alignment. What felt like nothing changing was actually everything being rearranged in your favor. Stay where you are. You have not been forgotten. You have been considered carefully. My child, there has been interference you could sense, but could not name. A presence close enough to observe, close enough to influence, close enough to benefit from confusion. This enemy did not arrive with malice on display. They came wearing familiarity, concern, advice. They spoke softly, often reasonably, and that is why their impact went unnoticed for so long. They did not need to attack directly. They only needed to delay. This person thrived in the space between certainty and doubt. As long as nothing was defined, as long as commitment remained vague, they retained access and control. Your patience created a vacuum they were happy to fill. They planted questions that sounded protective but were rooted in fear. They magnified timing issues, exaggerated risks, and subtly framed your presence as pressure rather than possibility. Each seed was small. Together, they sowed momentum. You wondered why clarity kept slipping just out of reach, why resolve dissolved after moments of progress. This was not coincidence. This enemy benefited from your restraint. While you waited honorably, they maneuvered quietly. They had no desire to see alignment occur because alignment would expose their intentions and remove their influence. They were not in love with your soulmate. They were in love with their access. I allowed this to surface not to alarm you, but to show you how discernment sharpens in stillness. You felt the disturbance without proof, the heaviness without explanation. That was not insecurity. That was your spirit registering manipulation. But I did not permit you to confront it because confrontation would have entangled you in dynamics you were never meant to manage. This enemy underestimated truth. They assumed delay would weaken the bond. They believed time would erode memory, dull conviction, scatter intention. They did not realize that what is rooted in purpose grows stronger underground. While they spoke, while they interfered, while they redirected attention, something deeper was forming. Their interference became the very pressure that exposed their role. I began removing their leverage slowly. Conversation stopped landing the same. Influence lost its weight. Your words began to sound hollow even to the one they tried to sway. What once felt persuasive now feels intrusive. The mask is slipping, not through confrontation, but through contrast. Truth does not argue. It reveals. You were never meant to fight this enemy. You were meant to outgrow their reach. That is why I ask you to stay still. Movement would have made you visible in the wrong way. Stillness kept you covered while I dismantled what operated in shadows. The enemy cannot function without access, and access is being revoked. There is justice unfolding that does not require your participation. Misalignment always exposes itself eventually. Motives surface. Words contradict actions. Influence decays. You will not need to defend yourself or explain your absence. Truth will do that for you, quietly and thoroughly. Do not let anger rise when you understand this. Anger binds you to what you are being freed from. Instead, let clarity settle. This was never about competition. It was about control. And control loses power when awareness arrives. The season is shifting now. The enemy's benefit has expired. Their interference has reached its limit. What remains will be resolved without noise, without drama, without you stepping out of your covering. You are protected, my child. What tried to delay destiny has only revealed how close alignment truly is. My child, now heaven has turned its attention fully toward what has been hidden. Not because I was unaware before, but because the time for exposure has arrived. There is a moment when patience completes its work, when delay has extracted every lesson it was meant to teach, and when justice can move without harming what is innocent. That moment has come. I have begun examining every word spoken in secret, every intention masked as concern, every choice made out of fear rather than truth. Nothing has slipped past me, not the late-night conversations, not the half-truths, not the silences that were weaponized. I am weighing motives, not appearances. I am reading hearts, not explanations. This is the part you do not see, the divine courtroom that operates beyond your awareness. I am separating truth from narrative, love from attachment, influence from manipulation. What looked harmless is being measured for impact. What felt confusing is being traced back to its source. And what was done quietly is being addressed thoroughly. You may sense a shift in the air without knowing why. A subtle release of pressure. A feeling that something unseen is loosening its grip. That is not imagination. That is intervention. When I investigate, I do not rush. I am precise. I remove what does not belong without damaging what does. Your soulmate is becoming aware that things no longer align the way they once did. Voices they trusted feel inconsistent. Advice that once comforted now irritates. They cannot explain the discomfort, but it is growing. The discomfort is discernment awakening. It is the beginning of clarity, and clarity always follows investigation. I am also examining you, my child, not to accuse, but to affirm. I see how you stayed restrained when reaction would have been easier. I see how you chose dignity over desperation, faith over force. Your obedience has been entered into record. It matters. It has weight. It has protected you from being entangled in matters that would have drained your spirit. Justice does not always arrive loudly. Often it arrives as realization, as awareness, as the quiet collapse of false influence. People reveal themselves when their power fades. Truth rises when lies can no longer hold structure. This is happening now, whether you are watching or not. Do not fear what is being uncovered. Nothing true will be taken from you. Only what was built on confusion, control, or fear is being removed. You are not on trial. You are under protection. I am handling what you were never meant to confront. Stay where you are. Do not step forward yet. Investigation precedes invitation. Resolution precedes reunion. When this phase completes, movement will be clean, not chaotic. Clear, not confusing. And you will not have to question whether it is me. Heaven is active on your behalf. Truth is being sorted. Motives are being exposed. And the outcome will not require you to fight for what is yours. What belongs with you will move toward you freely, once what hindered it hath been fully addressed. Remain at rest. The gavel has not fallen yet, but the verdict is forming, and it is working in your favor. My child, something has begun to shift, even though your eyes still report sameness. This is how change often enters, quietly, without announcement, without evidence you can immediately point to. The atmosphere is different now. What once felt stagnant is loosening. What once felt heavy is beginning to lift. You are standing at the edge of movement, even if the ground beneath your feet still feels still. The work that needed to happen behind the scenes has reached completion. What was hidden hath been confronted. What was interfering has lost its grip. Now the energy is changing direction. You may notice it in subtle ways first. A restlessness that no longer feels anxious but anticipatory. A calm that settles in where frustration used to live. These are signs of alignment preparing to surface. Your soulmate is sensing it too, though they may not have language for it yet. The noise around them has quieted. The voices that once crowded their mind no longer carry the same authority. Space has opened where reflection can happen. In that space, Truth is beginning to speak more clearly. They are remembering what peace felt like, where it lived, and who it was connected to. You might expect this shift to arrive grammatically, with immediate contact or visible action. But I often move the internal world before the external responds. Conviction forms before confession. Awareness precedes approach. What is happening now is foundation-level change. It may not satisfy impatience, but it ensures stability. You are also changing. The urgency that once pushed you to seek answers is dissolving. You are learning how to be present without tension, how to trust without gripping. That is not passivity. That is readiness. When desire is no longer desperate, it becomes sustainable. I am preparing you to receive without fear. Do not rush this moment by demanding proof. Proof will come, but timing matters. If manifestation arrives before the shift has fully settled, it can create relapse. I am guarding against that. I am allowing truth to anchor itself deeply so it does not retreat at the first challenge. You may notice memories resurfacing now, not with pain, but with clarity. Things that once confused you will begin to make sense. Patterns will reveal themselves. This is part of the shift. Understanding is replacing questioning. Peace is replacing speculation. You are no longer in the dark. You are in the dawn. There is a difference between nothing happening and something happening invisibly. You are in the latter. The universe is adjusting to what heaven has authorized. Events are lining up quietly. Timing is recalibrating. Hearts are being nudged. None of this requires your effort. It requires your trust. Stay attentive, not anxious. Stay open, not controlling. You will know when movement begins because it will not feel frantic. It will feel natural, almost inevitable. When it comes, you will not need to chase it. It will find you where you are. This is the shift you could not see but needed to feel first. Let it settle. Let it strengthen. What follows will carry the weight of truth, not the fragility of hope alone. You are closer now than you have ever been, even if the scenery has not yet changed. My child, truth does not explode all at once. It presses. It leans. It seeps through places that were never meant to hold it back forever. What is happening now is not confrontation, but pressure. The kind that exposes cracks without force. The kind that makes lies uncomfortable to carry. Small things are beginning to surface. Inconsistencies that can no longer be ignored. Words that no longer align with actions. Stories that feel rehearsed instead of real. Your soulmate is noticing this, even if they have not spoken it aloud. What once felt confusing now feels suspicious. What once felt normal now feels heavy. This is how truth begins to rise, quietly but relentlessly. You may sense this through subtle changes. A shift in tone. A hesitation where confidence once lived. An unspoken tension that was not there before. These are not setbacks. They are signs. When truth pushes forward, it disrupts comfort. It demands resolution. It does not allow things to stay undefined forever. The influence that thrived in vagueness is weakening. It cannot survive clarity. It cannot withstand direct questions, even unasked ones. Silence now exposes what words once concealed. People reveal themselves when they are no longer believed automatically. This exposure is not loud, but it is decisive. Your soulmate is beginning to connect dots they avoided before. Moments that did not sit right. Advice that felt off. Reactions that seemed disproportionate. They are realizing that some of the confusion they carried was never theirs to begin with. That realization brings both relief and grief. Relief, because clarity is returning. Grief because trust was misplaced. Do not be surprised if you feel an internal confirmation during this time, a sense of being validated without needing explanation. That is truth aligning with what your spirit already knew. You were not wrong. You were patient. There is a difference. This phase may feel slow, but it is irreversible. Once truth rises to the surface, it does not sink back quietly. It changes how everything is seen. Decisions begin to shift. Boundaries form. Priorities reorder themselves. What was once tolerated becomes unbearable. You do not need to announce yourself during this time. Let truth do the announcing. Let clarity speak louder than presence ever could. What is meant to recognize you will do so without prompting. What is meant to move will move without pressure. The cracks are widening now. Not to destroy, but to release what was never stable. And when the structure finally gives way, it will not collapse into chaos. It will make room. Room for honesty. Room for courage. Room for a future that does not require confusion to survive. Stay grounded. Stay quiet. You are witnessing the rise of truth, and truth always knows exactly where to go. My child, the awakening you have been waiting for is no longer distant. It has begun inside them, softly at first, like a realization they try to ignore, then stronger, like a truth that refuses to stay quiet. They are becoming aware of what they risk losing, and that awareness is unsettling them in ways they did not anticipate. What once felt optional now feels fragile. What once felt delayed now feels endangered. They are seeing you differently now, not through memory alone, but through contrast. They are recognizing the absence of your steadiness, the way your presence once calmed what now feels chaotic. Peace has a way of revealing itself most clearly when it is gone. They are noticing how life feels noisier without you, how decisions feel heavier, how certainty feels harder to access. This is not nostalgia. This is recognition. Fear is rising in them, not the fear of commitment, but the fear of regret. They are beginning to understand that some opportunities do not wait forever, that some connections do not remain untouched by time. The idea that you might move forward without them unsettles their sense of control. They are realizing that patience is not endless and grace is not meant to be assumed. There are moments when they feel an urge to reach out, to say something honest at last, to bridge the distance that now feels dangerous. But with that urge comes hesitation. They question whether they still have the right, whether too much time has passed, whether words can repair what silence stretched thin. This inner conflict is part of the awakening. Accountability always arrives with vulnerability. They are confronting their own patterns now, not defensively, but reflectively. They see how they delayed when they should have leaned in, how they protected themselves at the cost of connection, how they mistook control for safety. These realizations are sobering. They are not condemning themselves, but they are no longer excusing themselves either. You may feel this awakening as a shift in the spiritual space between you, a pull that feels different than before, less chaotic, more focused. There is intention forming where avoidance once lived. This does not mean action will be immediate, but it does mean direction has changed. Your heart is no longer wandering. It is turning. Do not interpret their fear as weakness. Fear often appears when something truly matters. They are afraid now because they see clearly. They are afraid because they understand what is at stake. That fear is purifying their motives. It is stripping away casualness and forcing them to consider what they truly want, not what feels easiest. They are also becoming aware of you as more than a presence in their past. They see you as a choice they must now either honor or release with honesty. Indecision is losing its comfort. Neutrality is no longer possible. The awakening demands response. You are not meant to move yet. Let this realization complete its work. Let them sit with the weight of what they almost lost. Let them feel the seriousness of connection without your intervention. This is how intention becomes sincere. This is how pursuit becomes purposeful. Their awakening is not dramatic on the outside, but it is profound within. Something has shifted from avoidance to awareness, from delay to urgency, from comfort to conviction. And when they finally step forward, it will not be from confusion, but from clarity. Stay steady, my child. What is awakening in them is aligning with what has already been strengthened in you. This is not the end of waiting, but it is the end of uncertainty about direction. They are waking up to what truly matters, and you are no longer invisible in that realization. My child, there is a sacred truth unfolding now, one that centers on you more than you realize. Your presence, even in absence, had been influencing the course of events. Your prayers, your restraint, your quiet obedience have been shaping outcomes in ways you could never orchestrate on your own. This is the power of alignment. When you remain rooted, timelines respond. You wondered if stepping back meant becoming irrelevant. You questioned whether distance diminished your significance. But distance did not weaken your impact. It purified it. You removed yourself from noise, from reaction, from emotional negotiation, and in doing so, you allowed truth to stand on its own. That is why things are changing now. Not because you pushed, but because you trusted. Your soulmate feels this shift even if they cannot articulate it. They sense that something irreversible has happened. Not an ending, but a narrowing. Possibilities are no longer scattered. Paths are converging. They feel drawn toward clarity, toward honesty, toward the place where peace once lived. And that place is inseparable from you. This is what happens when one soul chooses faith over force. You altered the rhythm of events by refusing to chase what was not ready. You honored yourself when it would have been easier to plead. You stayed soft without surrendering your worth. That posture carries authority. It signals to heaven that you can be trusted with what you are asking for. There are moments now when your name crosses their mind unexpectedly. Not with anxiety, but with reverence. They are beginning to understand that connection is not maintained through proximity alone, but through integrity. They feel the weight of your absence as significance, not rejection. A distinction is changing how they approach the future. You are not invisible in this process. You are central. Your prayers have intercepted outcomes. Your patience has slowed what needed time. Your obedience has protected what could have been damaged. You have been participating without realizing it, partnering with me by staying where I placed you. Do not underestimate the power of staying still when everything in you wanted to move. This stillness spoke louder than words ever could. It communicated boundaries, value, and trust in my timing. It shifted the dynamic from pursuit to invitation. Now what moves toward you will do so freely, not out of pressure or fear. This is the moment where destiny begins responding to your posture. Not yet with visible change, but with internal alignment. Hearts are adjusting. Courage is gathering. Intentions are solidifying. And all of it has been influenced by your willingness to wait without closing your heart. You are not late. You are not forgotten. You are not behind. You are exactly where you need to be for what is about to arrive without resistance. Stay present. Stay receptive. The timeline has been touched by your faith, and it is bending toward resolution. What you did in the waiting mattered. It is still mattering. And soon, you will see how deeply your quiet obedience shaped what is now preparing to step forward. My child, this is the moment where everything gently returns to its rightful place. Not with urgency, not with spectacle, but with a deep sense of inevitability. What has been realigned in the unseen is now ready to touch the visible. You have walked through waiting without becoming bitter, through silence without losing tenderness, through uncertainty without abandoning trust. That is why the blessing arriving now will not feel foreign. It will feel familiar, like something your spirit hath been expecting long before your mind could explain it. Nothing changed for so long because everything was being prepared to change correctly. If it had happened sooner, it would have required you to carry what was not healed, to manage what was not honest, to stabilize what was not ready. I did not ask that of you. I chose instead to shape the season so that when movement came, it would not cost you your peace. What arrives next will not ask you to shrink. It will not demand that you overextend or overexplain. It will meet you where you are, with clarity instead of confusion, with intention instead of hesitation. The delay purified the path so that what steps forward can do so without distortion. Your soulmate will not return unchanged. They will come aware of what almost slipped away, grounded in truth rather than fear, ready to stand rather than hide. Their awakening has carved humility into their spirit. Their silence has taught them the weight of absence. When connection reappears, it will not be casual. It will be conscious. And you, my child, will recognize the difference immediately. There will be a steadiness where there was once uncertainty, a calm where there was once tension. You will not need to question whether this is real. Real does not provoke anxiety. Real settles the soul. This blessing is not just about reunion. It is about restoration of trust in timing, in intuition, in me. You will look back on the season where nothing changed and see how it protected you from outcomes that would have hurt you deeply. You will understand why I asked you to wait, why I asked you to stay soft, why I asked you to let me handle what you could not control. The waiting has reshaped you. You now know the difference between longing and desperation, between patience and passivity, between faith and fantasy. That wisdom will anchor what comes next. You will not lose yourself in it. You will meet it as yourself, whole and aware. As the story continues, you will notice that change does not rush in. It arrives with respect. It unfolds naturally. Conversations carry weight. Actions match words. Presence replaces promise. You will not have to chase clarity. It will stand in front of you. Remember this, my child. When nothing seemed to change, you were being strengthened for what could not survive weakness. You were being aligned for a blessing that required maturity, not urgency. You were being protected for a future that needed both of you ready, not just willing. Now breathe. Release the tension you carried for so long. Let hope return without fear. The season of stillness has done its work. What comes next will not erase the waiting, but it will honor it. Nothing changed yet, and that was okay. Because now, what changes will last. And you will step into it not as someone who endured, but as someone who was prepared. I am with you still, as I was in the silence, as I am in the unfolding. This is not an ending. This is alignment fulfilled.